Hellblade 2 has been receiving a lot of hate lately around its length, gameplay and price. But not wanting to let the internet dictate my every thought, I spent my own cold hard cash on a copy and put blood, sweat and tears into answering the age old question, does size matter? No, I mean, why does everyone hate Hellblade 2? We start our journey on a slave ship because we can't have nice things, and the ending of the first game wasn't satisfying enough, so why not go for round 2? Luckily for us, the ship ends up getting destroyed and we're plummeted deep underwater while almost drowning. But don't worry, Senuas soon remembers that drowning would be too kind a way to go and washes up on shore. She then decides to have a nice little lie down on the rocks, which honestly seems like a poor time to have a relax, but whatever. Eventually we decide to move and we're introduced to another slave who's been wrongly taken from his homeland, and so heroically we save him from the horrific death of drowning by freeing him. Nah, I'm only kidding. We leave him for dead so we can be haunted by visions of him later on. But to distract ourselves from the murder we just committed by proxy, we decide it's a good idea to go rock climbing during a storm. And after the voices in our head give us a little David Goggins pep talk halfway up a cliff,
get out of your head and stay hard,
I make it to the top only to be faced by the real villain of the game, Senua's daddy issues, which I completely forgot about and I'm fairly certain we got over in the first game. What follows is a lot of slow walking through an admittedly beautiful Icelandic landscape where I capture the thumbnail for this video and admire the dead bodies which are literally laid out everywhere. Hopefully that's not a bad omen. Senua then talks to a big pole, which is definitely something somebody of sound mind would do. I'm not saying it's her fault, but maybe if she spent a little less time killing people she could feel a little better. Speaking of killing people, we end up trying to stop this dude from killing a slave, but before we get there they fall off the edge, which makes me start to question if Senua's just a bad omen. Afterwards we find another dead man tied up, which I assume triggers some kind of guilt, as then all we end up seeing after this are ghosts of these people. We head to a ship in the distance to see if there are any survivors, which there are, but not the kind we like, more the brutally kill you type. And not being someone who stands for sexism, even in the 9th century, we stab him through the chest with his own sword, and then proceed to kill a few more in a fittingly brutal fashion, including one who probably just wanted a cuddle. Oh, no, still trying to kill us. She does all of this with such ease that it's actually quite concerning. Eventually we make it to the boat and do the only logical thing after nearly drowning, which is to climb in a confined space and check for survivors, who are all very obviously dead because we've been walking past them for the last half an hour. But not being deterred by little things like logic or self-preservation, we continue to search the wreckage, only for the spirit of people who died in it to try drown me, which kinda makes me feel better about leaving them all for dead. Finally I encounter the slaver from the beginning of the game who somehow survived the boat crash. He tries to kill us and what then ensues is a very long fight where eventually we break his leg and go to kill him. Just before that though, we have a better idea, which is to get him to lead us to where all the other slavers are, and like a really strange version of the Wizard of Oz we head off. At this point in the game we have now become the slave taker, which really makes me question Senua's moral compass. But then I remember this is the woman who killed a small town's worth of people and hears voices in her head, so I probably shouldn't look too deep into it. Speaking of towns, we then come across one which appears to have been destroyed by some kind of monsters. Our slave tells us not to go in there, but in the next breath then says he'll kill us soon, so I'm not inclined to believe him. I tie him to a pole to make sure he doesn't escape, and then it dawns on me that Senua's picked up being a slaver disturbingly quickly. But ignoring that slight moral conundrum, I head into the town. Walking in, I'm greeted with the sight of what I imagine an arts and crafts session with Jeffrey Dahmer would look like. There's bodies tied up, dismembered and strung about everywhere. Naturally, to proceed we have to line up the imaginary patterns again, which I seem to have a really difficult time doing. Eventually I get it done, but before I'm able to proceed, Senua begins to trip absolute balls. She sees her old childhood home, and when she enters we're able to pick up a magical mirror, which seems really nice until we have to fight off the memories of her entire village being massacred. On the upside, the mirror is able to slow time, which makes combat a little bit more fun. The confusing thing is though, once we finish fighting the invaders and come down from the trip, Senua still has the mirror on her side, which makes me question if she's just magic instead of suffering from psychosis. And something happens a little later on in the video which confirms this for me. We proceed forward, and after having a little daddy issue moment, we come across a house where there's a hanging man. By this point I feel like Senua's just desensitized to any death. On the outside we see light down a path, so we head there hoping to find some friendly people. Oh no, they're just cannibalistic cultists who murder indiscriminately. Well, at least we have that in common. Sneaking above them we see a man tied up and decide that we should save him because the voices in our head said so. Once again displaying Senua's amazing critical thinking skills in life and death situations. Making our way over to him, we kill a bunch of the crazy guys and use our time slowing mirror. But in the process I die for the first time, except the game is so cinematic I just thought it was a part of one of the many cutscenes until I had to restart the fight. I cut down our newfound friend who hopefully can replace a father figure we're lacking, and make it out just in time before the crazy people summon a volcano eruption to swallow them. I'm gonna be honest, Senua's mental state is making more and more sense. I really think she just needs a hug. Okay, maybe not. After all that excitement, we take a walk back to the town where we left the slaver, and I explain to our newfound friend how I'm trying to find the rest of them. After he acknowledges how batshit crazy that plan is, I'm then offered a place to stay at his camp for a bit. I meet up with my old friend who by some miracle is still alive, and after having some really insightful knowledge dropped on us by our new friend,
so if you leave him, will die.
Senua decides that she hasn't lost all of her humanity yet and cuts him free, only to drag him along with us. Walking to the next chapter of the game, I can see a base in the distance, which means I can finally get Senua to safety and feel comfortable putting the game down. The two guys then have a little cat fight over sacrificing humans to giants, which turns out is half the reason they're bringing all the slaves over. I didn't think it could get any worse, but turns out it can. Our new adopted dad then ends up feeling the ground and oh look, everything's on fire. I managed to make it through the fire safely, only to look and see this monstrosity crawling out of the ground. And to make matters worse, she reaches for that dude we saved. And so wanting to continue the trend of poor life decisions, we hit its leg to distract it. We then end up having a really weird staring competition, before that slaver we didn't leave for dead throws a spear in the side of its face. This gives us all time to make a run for it. Escaping into the cave, we climb up a rope and make it to the camp, but there's one more battle we need to face. We go to sleep and awake in a dark forest where we're greeted by the wonderful voice of her dad, who's been persistently tormenting her throughout the entire game. And while it's not great, at least her one can't go out for milk and never come back. We continue through the forest and pick up a torch, which allows us to navigate it safely. But we're then faced with the even bigger issue of figuring out where to go, because the forest is like a labyrinth. I know this because I died multiple times walking the wrong way. I do find my way through eventually though, enough to kill off a few more enemies, but I'm then able to make it to the end. I light the fire thinking that I'm going to defeat the evil dad, only to have an Uno reverse card pulled on me and end up tied up at the stake. Luckily though, I go full on Inception mode and decide that I'm in a dream, and I don't care what he thinks. If only all psychological trauma was this easy to get rid of. Waking up, it's a new day, and sure, we've killed the equivalent of Iceland's population, and also witnessed things that will be burned into our retinas forever, but most importantly, we made new friends along the way, and that's all that really matters. I hope you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe and let me know what you think of Hellblade 2, as well as what games you'd like to see me cover next. New videos every Friday, but in the meantime, if you want to see me go insane, why not click this video here and watch me play 5 Star Wars games that time forgot.